right, our speaker today is Miss Erin Keane-Scott. She works in collaboration with the 90.5 WESA and 91.3 WYEP staff to shape the aesthetic and voice of each station. She also manages all station communications and public relations. Prior to joining Pittsburgh Community Broadcasting, Scott was the Director of Marketing and Communications at Carnegie Mellon University School of Drama. As an editor and writer, she has contributed to publications including NewYorkTimes.com, Washington Magazine, Departures, Pittsburgh Magazine, and Pop City. Scott completed a graduate degree in journalism at Medill School of Journalism at Northwestern University and holds a bachelor's degree in theater from Loyola University, Chicago. When she's not at work, she enjoys trying new recipes, crafts that utilize fine motor skills, and yoga. Everyone, please give a warm welcome to our speaker, Miss Keane-Scott.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you all so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today. So I created a deck that I'll walk through, but I would really like this to be mostly a conversation. So, throw hands up, feel free to interject if you have a question, put them in the chat. I'll watch that too. But we'll run through my trusty deck here that'll keep me on track. So as Madeline, with a very nice introduction said, I'm the Director of Audiences and Brand Strategy at Pittsburgh Community Broadcasting, and that is the parent company of 90.5 WESA, which is Pittsburgh's NPR news station, and 91.3 WYEP, which is an independent community-supported radio station. So we like to say it's like a college radio station for grown-ups. Or it's like an extension of a college radio station. So commercial radio stations sell advertising spots. We don't do that. Both of our radio stations are supported by donations, grants. We're nonprofits. So the community, it's truly music and news. I like to say for the people, by the people. So I wanted to talk today a little bit about what I do in my job now, how I kind of got to this point in my career, because it has been a winding road, as you might have heard Madeline say. I went to undergrad for theater, then I went and got my degree in journalism. I worked for a journalist as a while, and now I'm a marketer. So it has been a pretty windy path, and I think that's not terribly unusual. So I want to talk a little bit about that. And like I said, stop me as I go, but we'll start with a little bit about what I do now. So brand strategy. Does anyone have a favorite brand that they think of frequently? You could just shout it out.
Jordans. I love tennis shoes.
Nikes.
Yeah, so Nike, right? This is one of the most recognizable brands you can think of. Another brand that always pops, or that has really strong identifiable character that always pops to mind for me is Coke. It's been around forever. You can, you just look at a can and you know right away, oh, that's a can of Coke. You can look at the shape of a bottle and know that's a bottle of Coke. And a brand are the components of an organization's character that make it identifiable. And brand strategy is thinking about how that brand is going to evolve and setting goals for the evolution of that brand. So that's a piece of what I do for the radio stations, thinking about, how we're going to position each of those brands in Pittsburgh to get the most audience that we possibly can and the most community involvement that we possibly can. Another huge piece of what I do is audience research. So that's quantitative and qualitative, gathering quantitative and qualitative information that can help tell us a little bit more about who is listening, who is reading, who's engaging with our stations, and their habits in general. So how can we find, where are they, and how can we start to think about meeting them where they are? Some examples of quantitative data: I recently sent out a survey to different members via email, via social media. People responded to that survey. So that's a good example of some quantitative data. I can look at all of that and kind of get some percentages, fill out a spreadsheet if I wanted to. Ratings are another example of that. Does anyone know what Nielsen ratings are? I don't want to person-splain things that, that everyone already knows about. But that's like how well a radio station, a TV station, a show is doing, how many people are watching, how many people are tuning in. So that's another example of quantitative data. And then also qualitative data. So like if you were to email me and say, oh, I really loved listening to your record label day programming yesterday, WYEP is doing great. That's a good example of qualitative data. It's a testimonial. It's someone actually saying like, yes, we like what you're doing and here's some specific feedback. Another way to do that is via a focus group. And focus groups are when you get, you gather a bunch of people who can become a representative sample of your audience and ask them really specific questions about a research question you might have. So if you have a hypothesis, you can kind of test it against a focus group. And finding out more about the audience helps you fine tune that brand strategy. And then the last thing that is sort of a huge part of my job is community engagement. So all of this is a little bit of a part of marketing, but we're seeing it through the lens of brand strategy and audience research. And I think that really translates into community engagement. How do you pull together your brand strategy, your audience research, and start to meet your audience where they are, and to build new audiences as well. So that can be through things as simple as putting out Facebook ads. It can be something as exciting as holding a concert. You know, we run the Summer Music Festival through WYEP. That's a community engagement activity. I don't know if any of you've heard of the Reimagination Project. That's another community engagement activity we do through WYEP, and it's a teen recording project. So if you're a musician, you apply and get to work with music industry professionals here in Pittsburgh to record a song, and it goes onto a CD. So we're kind of starting to cultivate some newer, younger audiences through that, and also reaching out to the community. And now, you know, right now we're doing a virtual community engagement program. We're all participating in that, but it could also be something like Instagram stories where you just ask a question and respond, you know, listen and wait for your audience to respond. So really reaching out and sort of asserting those identifiable characters of your brand within the community and letting people engage with that brand identity is working for 91.3 and 90.5. And before that, I worked at Carnegie Mellon School of Drama as their director of marketing and communications. And that was actually my first marketing job. I was there for 5 years and really got to kind of cut my teeth and learn on the job of how to apply some of the skills I gained through my work as a journalist to the world of marketing. And some examples of some recent work that I've done that I'm pretty excited. I always say that we're going to zhuzh it up. If something is kind of looking a little stale and might not be exemplifying the brand voice and the brand strategy that we want to work toward, we're going to zhuzh it up. So I recently worked with an agency to redesign the logo for WYEP. So this symbol might be really familiar to some of you. The Dancer Man is what he was called. And then that logo had been around for 25 years. So we worked with the agency to say, like, how can we maintain some of the spirit of this logo that many people are really attached to and pull it into a more modern framework? And that's how we came up with this current logo. We call this square our actual physical logo, our little YEP Rorschach, because different people see different things in this square all the time. I've heard side of a headphone, I've heard speaker box, I've heard equalizer. It's kind of fun. It can represent a lot of different things and different qualities of our brand. At the same time, we redesigned our website. So we had an old website. It was pretty stale, really, really disorganized. And we also redesigned that so that it had a little bit more visual hierarchy, and again, kind of communicated the brand identity that we were hoping to. that we're hoping to connect with our audiences. Another really exciting project that I've worked on in the last several years is Carnegie Mellon University's partnership with the Tony Awards. And I think this is a really good example of finding synergy, engaging audiences, and engaging communities. So the great thing about working with the Tony Awards for Carnegie Mellon was that we had some crossover audience, but it helped new people discover both brands. So it created positive affinity for both brands. And I believe the applications to CMU's School of Drama increased by like 10% after our first year working with the Tony Awards. And then you can see here, I got to interview Leslie Odom Jr., who starred in Hamilton, which was a huge highlight of my career in general. And that year we had a couple of alumni who were in Hamilton, and that also helped us have a little bump. So another positive brand association, but that's a lot about what the work is. It's like finding out different ways that you can have synergy with other brands and pull those people into your orbit and associate them with the identifiable characteristics of your brand. So as I said, the journey to the Tony Awards to getting to redesign a logo has not been linear. I think it's really important to be honest about the amount of strange stuff that I have, not strange, but like it's not exactly what you would think would be the trajectory. I think when I was young, I imagined like I would go to college for a certain major, I would get a job in that major, and then I would work in that job for the rest of my life, and that was going to be my career. And I soon found out that that was not the case. And I think advice that I would have liked to have when I was a young person is just to stay open to the course that your life will take, to the things that you don't know yet, how the opportunities that you don't know yet will present themselves, and to just make sure that you're learning from every single opportunity, every job, every good job, every bad job, every good relationship, every bad relationship, and really kind of know that like you might take 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, and then 5 steps forward and 1 step back. But eventually, hopefully, you start to find some defining characteristics that you can, or through lines that you can kind of chase down. So to give you a quick rundown of my journey, I was a theater major at Loyola University Chicago. I had minors in French and women's studies. I went and studied abroad my junior year, my second semester of junior year, which was a wonderful experience, and came back and kind of knew I didn't want to do theater anymore, but I was already 3/4 of the way through my education and was kind of like, I'm just ready to be done with school. I want to get my feet wet in the real world. So I started working in sales. I had worked in retail all through college. So I knew that I had some skills in that area. And I went to work at a bank. My parents were like, yes, great, a bank. You should definitely do that. That will be a solid job. You'll, make enough money and you'll have health insurance. And it was a little bit of a soul suck. I'm not going to lie. I was selling mortgages. So here's the theater major, selling mortgages, working in finance. I had no idea what I was doing. And I hated it. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I hated it. But I then said, okay, started thinking, what's next? Like, don't get stuck. You're 22. And I had a friend who was managing an apartment complex, and he needed someone to help show the apartments to people. And he said, okay, you can come show the apartments to people and we'll pay you a commission for every apartment that you rent. So then I went and did that. And the good thing about that job was that I had a lot of flexibility with my time. So that allowed me to start kind of formulating what my next steps in life would be, and thinking a little bit more creatively about what I wanted to do for a job. I always loved music and went to a lot of concerts, and I had worked in the college newspaper. So I started freelancing for a small music website because I wanted free concert tickets, and that went well. And I started to build a portfolio of work, and I was reviewing CDs. And then I eventually got offered to write a blog for the Chicago Tribune's blog network. At the time, blogs were very hot. It was like 2008, 2009. And that all translated into a portfolio that helped me apply to grad school for journalism. And that's where I went to Northwestern for journalism. And I learned about a lot of different types of journalism: daily news, magazine, how to film a video and edit it, how to tape audio and edit it. And I still really loved writing. That's sort of a through line for me. And I started to see that through line. So somewhere in the mix of this journey, I fell in love with my partner. He had moved to DC, and I wanted to be near him. So I found a job working, a fellowship actually, working for an advocacy organization called the Pew Charitable Trusts, where I wrote like briefs for Congress people about antibiotic resistant diseases, which is nerdy and boring. And I was pretty happy that once that fellowship wrapped up, I started working as an editorial assistant at Washingtonian Magazine, which is sort of like Pittsburgh Magazine, if you've read that ever. And that was really fun. I got to cover Obama's second inauguration and go to the inaugural balls. It was a pretty cool gig. Then we ended up moving to Pittsburgh, where I kept working as a journalist, freelancing. So that means pitching, which I know is going to come up, sending in articles to different publications. And then eventually I edited a newsletter that's not in existence any longer called Pop City. But freelancing is tough. It's very, it's constant hustle. So I knew I was kind of looking to get into something a little bit more regular, and I saw the job opening at Carnegie Mellon, and I thought to myself, well, why not give it a whirl? I can write, I know about social media, I know how to do website stuff. I think I can probably translate some of these skills into work. I went to school for theater and I got the gig. So that was, like I said, my first job there. I really got to cut my teeth, had a lot of opportunities to try different things, a lot of freedom to try different things. And I realized that I was pretty good at marketing and branding and coming up with these strategies to build positive affinities to the brand and get the word out about our events and engage the community. And when I kind of started to run my course there, I was lucky enough to find myself working back in the world of journalism, but bringing this new skill set as a marketer to the table. So I'm not working as a journalist, I'm marketing the journalism, which is kind of, it's cool. It's very fun for me. So in any case, a very windy road. Something that has really helped me along the way has been defining my values. And I think that this is another good kind of piece of advice that I wish I had gotten when I was younger. I always think back to that sales job, the mortgage sales job that I hated. And I think I knew all along that it wasn't in line with my values. I didn't feel like I was being kind or generous or honest or any of the things that I really prize now. And that was a real gut check for me. Like, if you're feeling sick because you have to go to work, you probably, like, that's not a good thing. So, you know, defining your values and letting that be your gut check, I think, is a really good thing. And I think also having, you know, a defined set of values that is, again, evolving and constantly redefining, but they can be your compass. So, you know, like, if there are certain things that you value, to me, I love marketing, but I always like to say I want to use my powers for good. So working in nonprofit is a really good thing for me. Working in a really mission-oriented organization is something that's really important to me because I care a lot about equity and justice. And then I think when you're in a job that aligns with your values, sort of no matter what the gig is, you're going to feel more satisfied and feel more content. So I would urge you all to kind of start to think about what your values are. Know that they're going to change, just like I said, be open, but keep defining them and following those values, because they'll help be your gut check, your compass, and will help you kind of find contentment ultimately. Also, I want to talk a little bit about side hustles, because I feel like I certainly would not be where I am right now if I hadn't taken on extra jobs. Just while I was doing one job and knowing that I wanted to transition into something else, thinking to myself, like, okay, well, I'm just going to take this opportunity. It's here. I'm going to say yes to it. I think there are certainly times in life to say no, but when it comes to your early days of career, saying yes to more experiences can't hurt. You know, the work that I did in retail in college translated into the sales gigs that I had. And then the writing I did for the school newspaper then translated into being able to write about the concerts, which translated into work as a journalist, which translated into being able to do marketing. Even now at 36, I still have a side hustle. I'm trained as a doula. About a year and a half ago, founded a nonprofit called Forward Allies that's aimed at helping people who are experiencing reproductive events get access to mental health care. And I have no idea where that work is going to take me, but it's something I'm really interested in. And typically I just try to, if something's really calling me, I try to listen to that. And a lot of the times it has to take the form of a side hustle because, you know, we got to pay the bills somehow, but also I am really curious and eager to keep learning. And I think engaging your curiosity can often pay off in dividends. And the last thing I want to talk about is manifesting, which is a big woo-woo term, but I think it's really important to use your imagination. You want to dream big and be pragmatic at the same time. But I think back to, I have this anecdote I love to tell about. I was 9 and 10, and my school had this When I Grow Up speech competition, and I won the school-wide competition both years. I was very proud of. I apparently a good speech writer and marketer even then. But the first year I won, I said I wanted to be an actress, and the second year I won, I said I wanted to be a writer. And even though what I do now does not look like the dreams that I had when I was 9 and 10, I think that like letting myself be imaginative, allowing myself to chase down the curiosity, saying yes to opportunities, even if it meant a lot of extra work sometimes and less time to, you know, sort of dink around. I now have a career I really love, and I'm open to what the next steps can be. And I always kind of am excited to dream and think about what's next. So I think I would encourage all of you to do that too. Set intentions, show up in the spaces that you want to be in. I always say never. I mean, so much of the good things I've learned have come from like finding the email of a person who I admired, you know, through like a deep Google search and just saying, hey, can we have coffee? I would love to talk and hear more about how you got to where you are now. And those kind of conversations, people are usually excited to have them. They might not be, they might not respond to you, but you shouldn't stop asking, because I think those kinds of conversations can really help you along and help you define where you want to go in your career. So that's sort of my spiel, but I would love to hear any of your questions about what I do now, the road to this work in branding and audience research. Hit me.
What do you do now? Like, what do you do for work like right now?
Right now, I work at 90.5 WESA and 91.3 WYEP. So I do pretty much all of their marketing, but it comes through a lens of brand strategy and audience research and engagement.
There's a question in the chat for you.
Okay. Is it what confirmed this career for you and made me want to officially take this route? I think, honestly, I didn't know. I cried when I accepted my job at Carnegie Mellon, because I knew that getting out of journalism, like once you kind of take a job in marketing, it's hard to go back into journalism because it traditionally messes with your credibility as a journalist once you sort of take a stand at a certain organization that introduces bias. So I didn't know. I was like, I don't know if this is the right move. I'm just going to go go with my gut and hope that it's the right fit. It seems like it's going to be cool. I knew I was going to still get to do a lot of the things that I loved about being a journalist, which was like interview people, do a lot of writing. And I took a leap of faith, I guess, in myself, and it worked out well. It turned out I was really good at it and I really liked it. And as long as I kind of keep seeing it through the lens of like, I say marketing using my powers for good, like as long as I'm working with a mission that I feel like I can get behind, it feels great. It's really confirming for me. And that's how I feel about working at the radio stations too. I love music. I really believe that journalism is critical to a healthy functioning democracy. And so those are two things I can get behind, and I'm happy to market and trumpet from the rooftops all day long. So the next question I have is, have you done anything regarding your minor studies in college? No, I have not. My French is terrible right now. I'm just being very honest. And I mean, women's studies, I think like feminism is a through line also for me, a lens through which I see the world. So that was useful to me in shaping my worldview and my values. So I think, that was good, but I don't, there's no like specific practical application for those things. The school that I went to is very liberal arts oriented. So it was, I could have taken on another minor probably if I wanted to, but I didn't. I got, what kinds of music do you like? I love all kinds of music. This is what's really fun about working at WYEP is that it's super eclectic. It's like what the DJs like at any given moment. So I'm like sort of an indie rocker of the early 2000s ilk. Wilco is my favorite band, but I also love hip hop, bluegrass, you name it, I'm down. If it's good, pretty much anything but like pop country is on my list of being a-okay. I love the Beatles. The Beatles is actually the WYP station manager's like favorite band. He knows every single thing about them. Yeah, it's pretty cool. The radio, working at the radio station is pretty cool. They're two totally different voices, which can be interesting to manage. Brands with two totally different voices. Like YEP is totally sort of alternative culture, and NPR is sort of a little bit more straight-laced, proper. We're doing news, we're letting you know the information. But does anyone have any questions about working in radio in general? I mean, even though I'm not on the air, I do go on sometimes for pledge drives to pitch. But I'd be happy to answer any questions about that too.
Just real quick. So like, you say you're working like in marketing too, right? So did you ever like any apprenticeships or like something like that you're working at like not for like a job that you didn't do in college?
I have done some internships in my life. There was never a marketing internship specifically. The fellowship that I did right after I got out of grad school might be a little bit analogous to that. It wasn't a permanent job. It was a time limited position to help out specifically in this advocacy role. So it was a little bit, I guess would say where I started to sort of see a little bit what it takes to run communications for a nonprofit. And then when I was an undergrad, I was a theater major. So I chased down a lot of internships and jobs related to that around Chicago. But yeah, otherwise I was pretty lucky to be able to kind of take really entry-level rung jobs. I mean, though, like working at the magazine as an editorial assistant is like, ooh, bottom of the barrel. Yeah. And you're taking any assignment anyone throws your way. You're like, I don't know anything about that, but yes, I'll learn and I'll do it. Fine.
Are you able to provide any insight to our entrepreneurs that are going to be pitching their ideas in the next few weeks? Do you have any suggestions or tips for that?
Sure. I think to me, a successful pitch is confident. It is not too complicated. you know, be clear, be able to define what your, are they pitching products, companies, startups? What are we pitching?
They're startup ideas.
Great. Yeah. So I think being confident, being clear, not getting too in the weeds, but making sure that you give that sort of key top level ideas about what makes you special, what makes you different from another organization who might be doing something that's even just a little bit close to it. Why you? Why your brand? I mean, I think, especially, you know, launching this, one of my side hustles, like I said, launching this nonprofit was one of my first opportunities to take something from nothing, a seed of an idea, and pull it into fruition. And as a marketer, I thought, you know, having a good, strong visual brand identity was really important. So I think if you can start to work with that and making sure you're weaving a consistent visual theme throughout your presentation is really a great way to solidify you in people's memories. Yeah, is that helpful?
Very, thank you.
I was gonna say, I got lost. I couldn't get back to my unmute. Thank you, that was great. Also, I don't know if I'm taking you all's questions. I'm sure you all have them, but what about branding? What was one of the, I know you talked about that, but when you started your nonprofit, what was one of the key, I guess, key obstacles when you were looking at branding, but what also, you know, was your inspiration for branding the way you did?
Well, for that one, and actually I can speak to this a little bit about WYEP too, since we just redesigned that logo and I was the driver of that project. I think it has to start with values. I mean, I know I talked about defining my personal values, and I think that has been great, but brands are defined by values too. So when you can start with mission and work out of that, that really helps. And I know that sounds kind of ethereal, like how do you get from a mission statement to a visual brand? But there are some key things to that. So for YEP, we had a recognizable logo and word mark already. So the word mark is like the thing that actually says 91.3 WYEP, or the type. And it has strong hold in Pittsburgh. And so we knew it was going to be tough to redesign that, tough to come up with something that was as iconic as the old one. And something we did was let ourselves be inspired by Pittsburgh. We're a Pittsburgh community broadcasting radio station. So when we started working with colors, we started thinking about that red is kind of a color, a rust color. So you think about Rust Belt, you think about our history and steel. The blue represents, you know, the rivers. It doesn't hit you over the head, but these are the sort of things that start to inspire you. For the nonprofit that I founded, Forward Allies, it was thinking about how do we pull in those letters in a way that's really strong? What shapes are going to work? Colors for us, pink was really evocative of like spring, fertility, sort of reproductive health. That was meaningful. So coming from mission and then starting to sort of pull in those visual associations, I think can be huge. And also sometimes it's just like you type the word into Google and pull up an image search and start letting that be your jumping off point. It doesn't have to be like some magical creativity that gets you from point A to point B. I think it's just starting to like find your foothold, even if that's say like just plugging a word into Google, looking at image search and starting to say, oh, I'm seeing some consistent visual themes here. You know, for Pittsburgh, that might be bridges, black and yellow, you know, rivers. You know, I'm thinking of like the Coke Works and the towers with smoke billowing out of them. Like there are different things that can help images that might come to mind. So is that helpful? Does that answer the question?
Yes. Another question on branding. from Nair, how have you given yourself exposure to receive attention for your cause or work?
Sure, that's a great question. I
Mhm.
mean, I think a lot of it is using all the tools that you have on hand. So I've worked in places where I've had very, very little money to do that. So a lot of the traditional ways would be to like buy ad space and the Post Gazette, on KDKA, on TV, you know, on to find a place to, but then you have to film the commercial, which takes a lot of time, money, resources, or tape it, time, money, resources again. So something that I've really done to sort of just make it work is use social media. I think social media is a great place right now to be able to get a lot of exposure without having to shell out a lot of money. And especially if you're on message and can connect with other people who are interested in that and you get involved in the right circles, that can help build, it can have a ripple effect, right? So like you start small and then things start to kind of expand out. And some of the ways that you can do that are through like really researching hashtags and making sure that you're tagging your photos with those, really trying to use nice photography, or I use Canva all the time. That's how I built that deck. That's a free tool that you can, that has tons of great templates you can use. So if you don't have a budget for graphic design, you can help get your message through with a lot of that, and hearkening back to like building a consistent visual identity, starting to formulate those ideas, like what colors are we going to use every time? What font are we going to use every time? And keeping those as through lines in your posts can be really helpful. But I think social media is a great tool for that. I mean, I know I'm like old, so I'm not on TikTok, but you know, those kinds of videos and use the tools that you have and do. And also I would say, like, listen, I learned so much by Googling. I just, like, if I don't know what I'm doing, I Google it first, and then I try to find an expert who might be able to help me if I can't figure it out from there. So, you know, like Google TikTok best marketing practices, and you'll find it. But then, you know, there's also a whole environment of paid advertising you can do in a lot of those social media areas too. So, but I would say from a grassroots standpoint, social media is really a great bet. And reaching out to people, again, just like call people, say, I'm starting a thing here, you know, where do you think I can fill? What gap can I fill in? The platform Canva, is that what we were asking? Yes, thank you, Carla.
And Canva is
great.
really easy. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's super easy. It's like the amount of time that I've spent learning how to use Photoshop, and now Canva exists. I'm like, okay, well, I'm never touching that tool again. The Photoshop, I mean, I barely open Creative Suite anymore. Yeah, it is. It's a great tool.
Yeah, there's a lot of free things on there. I know when we first moved to Zoom, Canva was where I got my first backgrounds, but
Yeah.
it's great for Facebook, and it'll list the social media platform. It is completely free. Well, there is free things on it. There are some things that you can pay for, but there's a lot of free content for backgrounds for your social media, which are incredible. I love it.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it has all the sizes pre-plugged in, and they stay up to date on that. So it's a real time, it's like time saver. And yes, now your Photoshop is difficult. I work in InDesign a lot too. And also Canva still makes all of that much easier. It's really democratized graphic design, which is huge because it's an expensive service. I mean, I think budgeting is boring, but there's a lot that you can do to be creative, to get the word out with very little money. And that's how, like, especially if you go down the road that I have and work in nonprofit, you're going to be finding yourself in that situation more often than not. So I think it's like getting creative, building relationships, and really maximizing the tools that you have on hand.
So guys, do you all have any questions about some of the pitches that you're preparing or the businesses that you're preparing? Can you see how this marketing piece is crucial to the success of your business? Any questions about any of that? I mean, we have an expert here. That's why we brought her in. So this is a chance to ask questions.
I mean, I guess like now, like, but it's more like I think it's like a dream, I guess. But like, I wanted to like, I live in Pittsburgh, so I wanted to like when I grow up, maybe I become like capable of like setting up a place for like kids or like teens to be somewhere after school, like a program, because where I live, our old Boys and Girls program shut down, so I was like pretty up. I was like, man, like we're gonna do after school, and I mean, a lot of people don't know where to go or be bored, and we do bad things. So I always felt like, what can I do? You know what I mean? So we can actually have an opportunity to do something and maybe learn something too as well. So, but I don't really got a question of the sort, but I just want to like probably go to college and try to find a career for that. Like last week was agriculture, so stuff like that, so I could like build something.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What part of the city did you say? I didn't hear where you said you lived, because you said the after school programs closed down.
Williamsburg. Yeah.
Wilkinsburg?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it is. Look, I have your application. Yeah. Well, you can join our virtual after school program, and we can definitely talk about after school programs in the community, because there are some ways to use churches. Churches are nonprofits. So you can actually start your own after school program under a nonprofit church umbrella. So if you want to talk about that, it can be done on a smaller scale. And I've seen, youth programs start that way after school, where the church is already open and you can sort of partner with them for their members can also be part of your after school programming. So there are ways to do it, even though there's no existing program. There's definitely a way to get one started. And I know some churches in Wilkinsburg, so definitely we should chat. No other questions? No other comments? Does anybody want to share their ideas and maybe get some tips on how to market for your business idea?
My business idea, you for the entrepreneurship program?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm making a mask for people with like breathing problems. Because I know like a lot of people can't like breathe in them. So that's what I was doing for my business pitch. How do you think I should go about that when we have to present our ideas and we only have 5 minutes to present?
Sure. I think the biggest thing is highlighting how the functionality, how does it work? How does it keep the user safe and also help them breathe better? Make a problem statement and then let them know how you're solving it, and then showcase your design. How does it look cool? I think, masks are the new like fashion item.
And I thought that was a great idea as well, Trinity. That one, because a lot of people are struggling. I was just telling Maddie, somebody came to my house and they're like, oh, we can't work in a mask. And I'm like, there's just no way you're coming in here. But people are having difficulty breathing. And I go back to when COVID started, how people that read lips couldn't communicate because people didn't have masks that were clear. So now you see them everywhere. Not everywhere, but you definitely see them in, on the media, social media, on the news. If someone is speaking, they're using the clear mask. So I think those solutions are definitely great ideas. And Trinity, I'm looking forward to seeing yours.
Yeah, that sounds very cool, Trinity.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you, Rabrea.
I'm glad we're getting some good questions, because I know that I call Ms. Erin all the time to ask for advice and stuff. Actually, Ms. Carla, I'm relatively sure that Ms. Erin is the one who helped me rewrite my cover letter for my application for this job, and largely takes the credit for me getting it. So,
well, thank you.
I have a question.
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay, so me and my group member Lamaya, we're doing this mental health thing. Like it's like teen
peer mentoring.
Yeah, team mentoring, team psychiatrist thing. And we were wondering like because we all know that at some point you have mental illness or mental health after like COVID and everything. So we will want to know how should we go about that?
So you're looking to connect folks with mental health services or mental health care after COVID. Is that what you're thinking? Teens? Yeah, that's great. And very important. I mean, I think it is starting to connect with the community. That would be your first step. Find out like who are the practitioners, who are the psychologists, who are the social workers who are seeing that problem, and ask them where their pain points are for connecting with patients, and ask them what they're hearing from their community. And then I think it's as simple as say, you know, you don't even necessarily have to have some big fancy website. Like, make an Instagram, go on Canva, make yourself a logo, make yourself an Instagram account, and start connecting with other people and saying, hey, like reaching out, sharing your message, working with those practitioners, sharing some of the tips that they might have for helping yourself through the, you know, stress, trauma, depression. I don't want to get too dark here, but yeah, COVID sucks. And it's not going to be good on the other end. I myself have really struggled, as I think many of us have. I mean, grief, that's another going to be a huge piece of the puzzle here. But just, I think even the message that like, it's okay to ask for help, like getting out there with that message on social. I think it's okay saying like, you might feel these ways and here are ways that you can identify those feelings. I mean, I'm not a practitioner, but I can imagine that I have said this numerous times to numerous people, like, I feel like it would be so hard to be a teen in COVID. And I'm like a parent with 2 small kids at home. It's not like a walk in the park, but I feel like being a kid at this moment in time would be really, really difficult. So I think letting people know that there are names for some of the feelings that they might be having and that there's help out there would be a huge jumping off point. And then starting to build out some resources and connecting those people to help. Sorry, I hope that was useful, Armani.
It was.
You'll have some great questions.
Are we supposed to be sharing our ideas?
You can, if you want to get advice on how you want to market those ideas. Because of her expertise, we thought that, you know, this would be a good resource for you guys.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'll tell you mine. Mine was like all over the place. It's still not like, you know, completely together, but I want to have an app that like caters to diabetics. So like, I want like diabetics to be able to get on the app and like talk to each other, because I don't know, there's not a lot of diabetics like that you know of that you can just like talk to about it. And I want also for like them to be like accountable to each other on there. So like maybe not like everybody know. I don't know, I'm still figuring that out. But like put in when you take your insulin and stuff, because I know that a lot of people don't take their insulin or try to harm themselves by not taking their insulin and stuff. And then I also want there to be like a map on there where like, you know, like on Google Maps or whatever, you can search up what place have certain foods and stuff. I want you to be able to search up like what places have the sugar-free version instead of having to, you know, like go to every place and eggs. So it'll tell you.
That sounds amazing, Rainique. I mean, it sounds like you really have a clear problem, which is like a space where folks with diabetes can support one another, and also a resource for finding other. I'm kind of almost imagining it to be like a Waze type of. Does anyone use Waze? Like where it's user generated, that you could like find different sugar-free items, but like people can say like, oh, I found it here, and you could drop a pin in the map and they can say like what items they found. I think that that's really cool. I mean, I think, wow, marketing that, I mean, I imagine there's probably associations that, I mean, community partnership is a huge way that I work. So you're going to hear me saying this again, like what organizations, what docs are out there who you can go to first and start spreading the word about your app so that they can share that with their patients. I'm sure there's a like a diabetes research association that probably shares information with people, like sending them, you know, some brochures so that they could put that, send those out with their materials. I mean, I think the same thing for doctors. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of interesting ways to get the word out about that. And an app sounds really cool. Flyers with a QR code on it to put in the doctor's office would be a great idea. So, you know, you have such a defined audience there. I think it would be interesting to research how those people are using technology. And then I always like to say, meet the audience where they are. You know, you can't expect the audience just to come to you. You got to go find them and meet them where they're at and speak to them in their language. So I think you're really onto something there. And yeah, go chat with those people who are in that space and find out how you can help them help you get the information out. Yeah, I mean, that's the idea, because they're the authorities.
Children's Hospital help a lot.
Yeah, that would be a great place. You know, if a doctor knows about your app, then they can, or a nurse knows about your app, they can put your flyers or brochures in their waiting room. And because it's coming from their doctor, people are saying like, oh, this person who's an authority on this issue is suggesting that I use this app. It's like influencer marketing, if I'm making it shorter. So like, you know, you see Michael Jordan wearing Jordans and you want Jordans. You know, your diabetes doctor says like, use this app. You're going to be like, okay, I'll check it out.
And even partner with some of the restaurants that offer those sugar-free options.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, especially now, of course, restaurants are definitely trying to get people to come in to, you know, to order or to, you know, do takeout. But I think that would definitely, you know, give them some free marketing, if, you know, for lack of a better word, to say, you know, these are the options that I offer. You know, I have 10 different menu items that are sugar-free. You know, they're automatically going to become popular for, you know, that population.
10 is pushing it. They only be having 3. That's the problem too.
I'm wishful thinking. Speak it into existence.
Mm-hmm. Manifest, right?
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? This was great information. Oh my gosh. I'm
so glad I got a chance to come in and chat with you all today.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you came to talk to us. This is a lot of great information. I'm sure there's going to be some additional feedback. So we might have to email you from time to time.
Please do. I would love that.
This is great. I mean, I think, you know, because right where they are is in their entrepreneur competition, they're just starting to write their, you know, their program, they're going to start with their lean canvas next week. So they'll be able to include that marketing piece on there in those, in those documents.
It's an important part of getting anything, any new brand, any new product off the ground, is having a solid marketing plan and some solid identity behind it. And it doesn't have to be, you know, a huge budget thing. I think there's so much that you can do just by getting involved in the communities that you're trying to work with.
Do they have to worry about trademark or copyrights or anything like that?
For their presentations?
For their, if it, you know, turns into a full-blown business, what's that next step look like?
Oh yeah, you do. Then those things start to come into play. It's like the boring and unfun side of things. Do
you all know anything about did you understand what trademark and copyright, was that clear, or is this just Miss Carla saying stuff?
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, you might find a photo on Google image search that you think is like great for your brand identity and really goes well. It might not have anything, you know, else identifying it as something. It might be like an artist's piece, but you can't just like post that photo on your Instagram and pass it off as something that's attached to your brand without asking for permission, because that's, you know, going to be the property of that artist. You know, for instance, in radio, for some of our promotions, like we can't use songs that are copyrighted in some of our promotions unless we have permission and pay to use those songs. So there's a lot of sort of, the bigger you get, the more noticeable you get, the more chances there are to get into legal trouble if you're not being very careful about putting original work out into the world, or asking permission if you want to use something.
So don't use the School to Career logo. I know it's cool, but can't use our S2C. It belongs to us.
That's right.
Yeah. And that is huge. And I think a lot of times it's easy to go on Google and it's like, oh, this image is perfect for my business, but it's not yours. So I think a lot of people don't realize they can't just grab any screen share or screenshot.
Yeah, I mean, that's very true. And I mean, listen, it happens for us still at the station all the time. You know, an artist, like a photographer, will take a picture of a musician and the musician will send us that photo because they really like that picture of themselves and they think it's a picture of me. And if we didn't ask, if they don't have permission from the photographer to share that image with us, then we can't use it. So, yeah. Or we can get in trouble if we do. You get a letter called a cease and desist.
Cease and desist means stop. You cannot
Stop.
use this.
Please stop using this immediately, or you're going to have to pay. So yeah, that's a really good question, because it's not very fun, and it's not like I mean, it's a quite unglamorous part of the work, but it is something that you have to be careful about. And I think not to be too like pious about it, but I think it's really easy to steal people's work on the internet. And that's why having that, being values driven, I think is really important in your work if you're going to be working in digital spaces.
Yeah. I mean, I think especially when you're thinking you're a small business and nobody's going to know you're using so-and-so's picture or background music. But as that business grows, like you said, you know, it could be 10 years from now and that's associated with your business, but you stole someone's music or you stole someone's image, and I guarantee you they'll come back and find you. So it's like, no.
It's true. But on the flip side, there are a lot of resources to find copyright free music, images. Creative Commons search is a great place to start for that. I'm going to type it in the
okay.
I think that should work.
Okay.
It didn't come up as a link.
.org. Okay.
That if you pull a search in there, like put a keyword in, it'll come up with all kinds of copyright free images. You can search for music, stuff like that there.
Look at that. You all have all types of resources this weekend. Get started. Any other questions, comments? I don't want to keep Miss Erin here all night long. You all good?
Thank you, Miss Erin.
Thank you for having me. This is a wonderful way to end my week.
It has been fun. Thank you.
Mr. Jeremy has my contact info, so if anyone has questions, please feel free to reach out. I would love to hear more about your pitches or be helpful. And maybe I'll send Mr. Jeremy a little email with some links too for good resources to use.
That would be wonderful. Thank you so much, Miss Erin.
Yeah, of course.